Toastmasters and guests. Let's go back to the first decade of the 1600s. Japan had become much smoother. The wartime was over. The battles had been won or lost. But some of the samurai still wanted to live by the way of the sword. One of these samurai was Miyamoto Musashi. At the same time, in Kyoto, there was a school that was most famous, the Yoshioka School of Sword. The time was 1607. And Miyamoto Musashi visited the Yoshioka School of Sword and challenged the leader, Seijiro Yoshioka, to a duel. A duel which would be, in the custom of those days, a practice bout. Unfortunately, Seijiro was not there that day. But his students who were there thought that Musashi was just a country bumpkin, and they sought to show him the real way of the sword. So they accepted the challenge. Musashi defeated every challenger, and the day resulted in many broken bones and even a few deaths. This hurt the school's pride. The school's pride was in jeopardy, and they decided the only way to save their pride was to kill Musashi. But he learned of this and he escaped. The second event, when the two came together, was that the Yoshioka School of Sword challenged Musashi to a duel. The time and the place were set in samurai customs, and he was to actually fight with Seijiro, the leader of the school. Because they had vowed revenge, 40 samurai were there ahead of time, setting a trap, waiting. And as they waited for Seijiro to show up, and they waited, and they waited, Seijiro did not appear. And they were confused. Then they found out that what actually happened was that Seijiro and Musashi met in an adjacent field at the appropriate time, in samurai custom to do battle alone. So they ran over to that field. And there they found Seijiro laying on the ground, his arm broken, useless. Seijiro lived, but that was his last sword fight. Again, Musashi was not there for them to kill. They issued another challenge for a specified time, this time in the evening. And he was to fight the younger brother, Denshishiro. It was snowing lightly. Denshishiro was cold, and Musashi was late. And Denshishiro became very, very agitated. So when Musashi arrived a few minutes late, he saw this agitation, and he egged Denshishiro on. Yoshioka was not the greatest swordsman of his day, and he lost his cool. And a few minutes later, he lost his head, along with another samurai who tried to attack Musashi from the rear. And again, Musashi escaped from the 20 samurai that were waiting there trying to capture him. The Yoshioka School of Sword put out a fourth challenge, this time to meet on a specified day at the spreading pine at the foot of the Ichijoji Hill near Kyoto. This time, they were not about to let Musashi escape. But this time, because the leaders of the school had already been defeated, the representative for the battle was to be the new head of the Yoshioka household, Genjiro. Now, Genjiro was a child, only 10 years old. But in the samurai tradition of those days, he could be the representative of the battle, and he would be taken care of by a dozen or so other samurai who would be active in the participation of the sword battle in his name. The time came. 75 or more samurai were there, waiting. They were not about to let anything happen to Genjiro, the 10-year-old child. So as they waited for Musashi to arrive, they put Genjiro at the base of this large spreading pine. To make sure everything went well, they had 3 men with bow and arrow. They had 1 man with the new-fashioned musket. And the man with the musket climbed up into the pine tree. They waited. There were 3 roads approaching the spreading pine at the foot of Ochichochi Hill. And they watched those roads. But Musashi did not come on those roads. Musashi came across the countryside. And he found himself at the top of the hill, looking down on all these men down there. And he could see the man with the musket up in the pine tree. And he could see the archers waiting in ambush. Musashi crept forward slowly. And then he ran about 20 paces. And one of the samurai saw him and they shouted, "There he is!" And Musashi ran another 10 paces to get within the proper distance. And then to the surprise of everyone, he stood up. And in samurai tradition, he declared the challenge for the bout about to begin. They were surprised. So surprised that when his first action was to run straight to the pine tree, they did not expect it. And Musashi's sword cut off about 2 feet of bark from the pine tree, which in that same swing then fell down onto the bloody head of Genjiro. Genjiro's father, who was also in the group, was vivid with rage and grief, and he came attacking wildly as Musashi's sword tip found its target. And then Musashi's sword took out another attacker coming in from the rear, and then another. The Yoshioka people were all confused. They didn't understand this. They were clamoring over each other to get to Musashi. And he took advantage of this. And suddenly he charged one of the men on the end. And as he ran over and charged that man on the end, that man was so surprised that he fell to the ground, lifeless. Musashi kept running. And once more, he escaped all of the samurai of the Yoshioka school of sword. Now for us, that is the end of the story of the Yoshioka school of sword. But for Musashi, he lived on another 38 years to 1645, when he died at the age of 61. Musashi Miyamoto accomplished many things in his lifetime, and he is proclaimed by many people to be the greatest samurai that ever lived. And when you see his pictures, you will see his hair flying wildly in all directions. A man-man, one that would never really adorn what the samurai considered most important. Musashi Miyamoto is truly a samurai legend.